So it turns out that my Honda mini truck didn't take too kindly to being driven to the bottom of the Grand Canyon. In fact, on that trip, it burnt through 4 quarts of oil, yet the manual only says it holds 2.7. Well, when I got it back, I limped it to my mechanic for him to diagnose the issue, and I just got off the phone with him. Fortunately, it is not good news. My brand new, old mini truck is officially dead. What are you doing? I know, you're bored, aren't you? We'll go out in a minute. I've just got to finish filming this and then we'll go out. How about that? Yeah? Sound good? What's up, guys? Welcome back to another episode and to this week's adventure. If you've been here since February, you will have seen that I got drunk and then accidentally bought a 1996 Honda Acty mini truck on Facebook Marketplace. And what started out as a cheap runabout has become somewhat of a costly endeavor. So let's talk about the true cost of owning one of these adult Hot Wheels toys. Now, before we get into it, can I please ask you guys just a little favor? If you aren't subscribed to the channel yet, go give that subscribe button a little tickle for me. It truly makes a huge difference to the channel and the performance of these episodes that I work so hard on. I'm a one-man band with no editors or assistants, so everything you see here on the channel, from me planning my adventures, packing, filming, editing, the thumbnails, uploading, even cleaning everything when I'm done, and now I'm having to deal with broken vehicles, it's all me. My content is always free to you guys, and so by subscribing, you are helping me to grow the channel and continue doing what I love, which is sharing these adventures and the good vibes with you guys. So thank you so much in advance. I'm incredibly grateful. When I first went to look at it, the truck was pretty gross, and it looked like it hadn't been cleaned or serviced this side of the millennium, but the owner told me that he had done his own oil changes as well as installed the lift kit, so I put my faith in his mechanical abilities and handed over $6,500 in cash. The first thing I did was I ripped out the interior and gave it a much needed clean both inside and out, and I was surprised at how good it looked. I expected to be metaphorically polishing a turd, but the pint-sized pickup did scrub up nice. I probably spent about $100 or so on cleaning products to get the 25 years of Japanese farts out of the seat and stop the dash looking like it had been parked up in Pompeii. I also installed a CarPlay screen and dash cam, which is honestly one of my favorite additions so far. It actually works better than the one in my mega cab. It connects immediately and the screen's super responsive. They're about $230, so if you have an older car that doesn't have CarPlay abilities, I highly recommend it, and I will link it down in the description below. Next up, I wanted to have a mechanic go through the whole thing, because like I said, as much as I wanted to trust the abilities of a guy who lives in an RV in the desert, the mini truck was also making some questionable knocking noises from the front suspension, and at some point it had been hacked up with a Sawzall. So just to be safe, I took it to Desert Fleet down here in Havasu for a full inspection and service. He ended up changing all of the fluids and filters, including both diffs, totally rebuilt the carb, fixed some oil and coolant leaks, welded the broken tailgate hinges, he changed the water pump and the timing belt, and he fixed the suspension knocking, which was actually caused by incorrect installation of the lift kit. And most importantly, he installed a straight-through sports exhaust to make it sound like it has an extra 100 bhp, which would be kind of awesome because from the factory they only make 30 horsepower. The total for all of that came to $1,600 plus $300 for the exhaust, meaning so far the truck had cost me around about $8,730. But now it was running great and I had CarPlay. Well, I say it was running great. We did notice there was a slight haze of blue smoke under acceleration, and Dan said just keep an eye on it and let him know if it got any worse. Yeah, there's definitely a little bit of blue smoke. So for the next few weeks, I mobbed the Acty around Havasu, taking diesel down to the beach, transporting patio furniture from Lowe's, and honestly, using it more than the $100,000 mega cab that sat in my garage. I love that thing. I was still being followed around by the blue hue of doom, but I was having way too much fun to let it bother me. So I decided that it was time to take the Acty on its first proper adventure, and what better place to take the world's smallest truck than the world's biggest canyon. There's a campsite that you can drive out to on Native American reservation called Diamond Creek Beach, about 130 miles from Havasu. Most of the journey is also on historic Route 66, and there's even a town along the way where you can field wild donkeys and watch cowboys and bank robbers shoot each other. To prepare for the trip, I installed a Whittle Woof Whack on my Whittle quack as well as some recovery gear, just in case we found ourselves in trouble. Turns out what I should have installed is a 50-gallon drum of oil continuously feeding my engine, which unbeknownst to me was breathing its last breaths. So, filled with optimism and 91 octane, I headed out on my epic expedition to the Grand Canyon. The truck was seemingly running fine, until about 100 miles down the road, when the low oil light just flickered ever so slightly as I braked for a traffic light. I pulled into the garage, and when I checked the dipstick, it made the Sahara Desert look positively waterlogged. There wasn't a speck of oil on the thing, so I grabbed a bottle of definitely not quality brand oil, and then attempted to dump it into the ridiculously placed oil filler tube. I made it another 10 miles or so until the engine began seriously bogging down, and it sounded like I'd lost a cylinder, which, when you've only got 3 to start with, is quite worrying. It sounds like I'm only firing on a few cylinders, and I've only got 3, so... Let's see, what's wrong with this thing? Not a clue. Not a clue. Hear that? And of course it would happen when I'm about as far away as I can possibly get. I genuinely thought at this point it was going to be the end of my journey, but I somehow managed to limp it to the next gas station, where I found another couple of quarts of slightly heavier weight oil that was still no-name brand, and then I dumped those in as well. And at this stage, the engine was still running, and I was now at the start of the big long off-road section that led to my campsite. So I decided to continue on my way and ignore the fact that I'd now burnt through 3 quarts of oil and was repeatedly losing, then gaining back, my 3rd cylinder. If you've seen the episode, you'll know that I did in fact make it down to and back from the campsite, and I had a lovely time while I was there. I limped it back home the 130 miles, where there were some parts that were a real struggle, with the Micro Machine randomly losing power, usually right when I needed it the most, like going up hills being chased by 18-wheelers. Just in case you wondered how much oil this was burning, I had the tailgate down, and that's what it kicked out, because I'm back here with Desert Fleet Dan. And so that brings us to now, and it turns out that after Desert Fleet Dan did a leak down and compression test, the worst case scenario has happened. He said something about him and the mad scientist needing to rip apart the block and replace the piston rings I fried, which I'm not sure what that's all about. But cylinder 3 is showing around 50 PSI, which I'm told is about 1/3 of what it should be. 1 and 2 are just about within specs, but still not great. So after weighing up my options, it seems that a full engine build is basically the only logical solution, and that's going to run me roughly $3,000, which brings my total spend on the Acty to just under 12 grand. Now, Dan recommended we also do the clutch too while we're in there, because why not? What's another 500 bucks, right? So there's 2 ways of looking at this. I could be pissed off that I'm dumping so much money into what is essentially an oversized yet undersized child's toy that I never really needed in the first place, and that may or may not ever be worth what it's ultimately cost me. But then again, if we only lived doing and owning the things we need, what kind of life would that be? In the weeks leading up to that fateful road trip, I fell in love with the Acty. I cannot tell you the number of people that drive by taking photos or give me a thumbs up, and without fail, every time I stop to fill up, somebody comes to chat with me about my decades-old dinky death trap. Now, do I need an Acty? Absolutely not. But what I do need in life is happiness, and since owning the mini truck, it has delivered that in spades. You just can't drive it without a smile on your face, and the simplicity is so refreshing in a world where everything is getting so damn complicated. It's functional too. I mean, my megacab's set up as an all-terrain apartment, so when I do need to haul something, I take the Acty. What I'm saying is, its value far exceeds the amount of money that I've actually spent on it. There's a time and a place for financial responsibility, and I'm not advocating frivolous spending beyond your means, but there is also a time and a place for doing what makes you happy. And while there are many other things that I could be spending that money on right now, none of them would add the same value to my life as that Acty has since I've owned it. So it will be back, and we will be going on more adventures with it. And who knows, maybe something else will need fixing in the future. The title of this video is The True Cost of Owning a Mini Truck, which for me has been just over $12,000. But the more important question is, what does owning a mini truck afford you? And I can tell you hand on heart that it is far more than just the vehicle. It's an experience, it's happiness, it's new friendships, it's a gateway to adventure. We live in a time where we're told to strive for bigger and better things, but I can't help but feel like that Acty is an example of how that isn't always the case. Sometimes bigger and better isn't always funner. So if you've been on the fence about getting one of these Lilliputian lorries, this is your sign to go and do it. Just make sure you've got a few extra grand laying around for repairs. Thank you for hanging out with me again this week. I'll be down in the comments below if you fancy a chat and have any ideas where I should take the Acty once it's back. Or if there's any other cool mods you think I should try out, let me know. Go subscribe if you haven't already, please and thank you. And most importantly, remember, until next time, don't do anything I wouldn't do. See ya.